My name is Brian Davis. I'm the proud superintendent of the Oshkosh Area School District, coming to you today as part of our community feedback sessions around our long-range facilities plan. Today I want to talk to you about a little bit of a history of what our facilities plan is, where we are today, and allowing you to have an opportunity to provide the school board with feedback on how to shape the future of the Oshkosh Area School District. So we'll start today with a little bit of feedback on the background from our facilities planning. Back in 2017, 2018, and 2019, the school board charged a community facility advisory committee called the FAC to come up with a long-range plan for our facilities and some recommendations that the school board could use to be able to set the plan in motion. There was some facility studies that were done and then some recommendations that were provided based on the feedback that was accumulated from the Facility Advisory Committee. So that was forwarded to the school board, and our facilities planning has gone forward on that plan. So it's really a community-based plan that we're working from that I'm about to show you. Now that plan was divided up into 4 phases because we certainly have a lot of needs with our facilities, but knowing we can't do everything at once, there needed to be a prioritization. So as you can see, there's a 4-phase plan that was developed that we've been tracking on to guide our facilities work in the district, both in the short term and in the long term. So phase 1 started in 2020 with the approval of a school referendum in November of 2020 that looked at north side consolidation of schools, safety and security, capital maintenance, and operations. So that was passed in November of 2020, and that work was completed as of the completion and opening of Menominee Elementary School this past September. Today I want to talk to you more about phase 2, which is where we currently are on our 4-phase facilities plan. And that'll entail some west side consolidation of schools, looking at some of our building conditions, and then an auditorium at North High School. Phase 3, as you can see from the model, looks at a new West High School and looking at also some operational improvements, which will likely be related to our technology infrastructure. And phase 4 would be improvements to North High School. So that, again, is the 4-phase plan that was laid out by the Facility Advisory Committee back from 2017 to 2019. Now, again, I want to take you through a little bit of the details now for phase 2 and allow you to have an opportunity to give feedback on this plan back to the school board so the school board can move forward and be able to make some decisions, again, for our future based on your feedback. So when processing phase 2, the school board has gone through a series of steps over the last year, starting in January and continues on today, getting some defined costs for the projects associated in phase 2. There were some presentations done at the school board level in August, and we're currently in the process of looking at community feedback sessions both September, October, and through November to give the school board as well-rounded of a perspective from a community standpoint as possible on this plan. We'll take a look in November, December, and January. The school board will have discussions about what they should have in phase 2 and whether phase 2 should move forward on a referendum ballot. And if it does, if the school board decides to approve phase 2 of a referendum, that will go to the community for a vote on April 1st, 2025 for phase 2. So that's the process as we're moving forward. Before we move forward, though, as some of the details on phase 2, I want to talk to you a little bit about the district in general, just so we get a contemporary perspective on where our district is. So one, you can see the demographics of our school district, that we're about 9,100 students across our system, which is down pretty dramatically from where we were back in 2017, 2018. You can also see the racial dynamic, the dynamic that we have with students with disabilities, our economically disadvantaged students, and English language learners, showing that we are a growingly diverse school district as we're moving forward. So it's important to know who the students are serving and how many students are serving, and that plays great importance as we're talking about phase 2. Also important to know that the buildings and the facilities improvements are needed, but we also have really important work that's being done and being successfully done in the classrooms. Really proud to say that reading and literacy is our highest priority from a school district standpoint, to make sure students are getting those basic needs met, basic skill sets, so they can build on their interests as they move forward throughout their school careers. And that we are up, when we take a look at our 3rd through 8th graders and our reading proficiency, we are up 2.5% from where we are from the number of students proficient from last year, and up 5.3% over the last 3 years. So really proud of the work that our teachers and our students and parents have done over the last 3 years in having a good foundational skill set for our students moving forward. Again, we have a lot of work to do, but really want to lift up the work that our staff has done as we move forward on that. Also want to take a look at the progress that we've made as far as the school report cards at the high school level. Oshkosh has, as you can see, 2 out of the top 3 high schools in the Fox Valley Association. So looking at our athletic conference schools, both of our high schools exceed expectations, and this is from the district report card that's provided by the Department of Public Instruction. And really proud to say that our high schools, again, exceed expectations and are 2 out of the top 3 schools in the Fox Valley Association. This is based off our reading and math achievement, along with growth in reading and math, and our on-track to graduation rates. So I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. And also finally, and as important, is our responsibility to the taxpayers. And want to be able to highlight that our school board has approved a 5.05% decrease in our levy from last year to this year. And so that's over a $3.5 million savings for our taxpayers here in Oshkosh, which is a really important note, because we are, again, being very conscientious and thoughtful of the taxpayers in Oshkosh as we're providing increased results here. And so we want to make sure that that's communicated. The decrease in the levy is due to an increase in state aid that we've been able to accumulate through prepaying our levy debt from previous referendums, along with decreasing our operational costs due to consolidation in phase 1. And I'll go through a little bit more of that in just a second. But again, the levy is down over 5% from where it was from last year. Now, phase 2, a lot of phase 2 is dependent on facilities consolidation, and that's building off of the consolidation from phase 1. So we want to make sure that everybody understands just the underlying why behind facilities consolidation and why we think it's an important way to go. So number 1 is supporting our growing students' needs. Number 2, to address the building conditions, thinking about ADA accessibility and compliance, and also the classroom adequacy, and really looking at the square footage of classrooms to match our current learning environments. Also, right sizing for our declining birth rates, and gaining our operational efficiencies. So we think those 4 areas are really the underlying why behind why we would continue our consolidation processes on the west side of Oshkosh. A little bit more detail on those 4, thinking about our growing student needs. 1 is to be able to have increased access to full-time staff. When we have smaller schools, especially at our elementary schools, many times we have positions that are half-time positions in one school and a half-time position in another school to combine for a full-time position, but the staff member doesn't get an opportunity to work in that particular school for an entire day. And so that limits the amount of time that staff are able to have access to students to be able to help support them. Consolidating schools allows us to be able to have numbers that would support full-time positions in one school, so students can get that full access to that staff member. And whether that's counseling or art or music or some of our other areas, it's just really important for us to be able to have that full-time equivalency position in our schools as we're moving forward. We've also seen that have an impact on our staff recruitment and retention, that when we have those full-time positions, we can attract a bigger pool of candidates and higher quality of candidates in those spaces. As far as our aging buildings are concerned, two of our schools on the west side are over 100 years old. So Roosevelt Elementary and South Park Middle School are both over 100 years old, with South Park Middle School being originally built in 1904. So going on 120 years of some of the original parts of South Park that are still standing and in use today. So that creates significant ADA accessibility limitations for us. We know that our students with disabilities didn't start going to our public schools until the mid-1970s, early 1980s. And many of our buildings and additions to our buildings didn't have accessibility in mind because that wasn't the population that we were serving at the time. And so we retrofit as well as we can, but we know heavily renovated or new buildings provide us with an opportunity to have more accessibility for all of our students, our parents, and our community members. Also looking at the potential of building system failures. Again, a 120-year-old building at South Park. We have portions of that building that have a 120-year-old galvanized pipe that's packed in asbestos, that's packed in brick walls that aren't accessible, and that creates a lot of leaking and condensation issues that we're seeing over time, tends to deteriorate the building. And so we have that liability moving forward, and something that we definitely need to make sure that we address to some extent. And then just the size of classrooms. So we know that our older buildings, the average classroom size is about 180 square feet smaller than our current classroom sizes as we would build new schools. And as we get into modern learning experiences with more group work and teaming, we need to make sure that we have as much square footage in our classrooms as possible to make some flexible space. So you can see on the screen just a few pictures from South Park Middle School. On the left-hand side, you can see the gymnasium, which again has some pretty significant safety concerns and accessibility issues when looking at the concrete bleachers. Unfortunately, we've had some safety concerns come up in the last couple of years related to that part of the building. And then on the first floor and on the lower level, we have some areas where you can start to see the deterioration of some of the walls and what condensation and moisture does over time. And again, our staff is doing a great job to be able to keep that building up and running the best it can, but it's 120 years old. And at some point, we're going to need to make some significant investment into that building. Here's an example again of just the classroom size difference. So when we talk about classroom size, we're not talking about number of students in the classroom. That won't change with any new school setup. It's really looking at the square footage of the classrooms being bigger. And so again, this allows us to be able to have just a more contemporary classroom and flexible spaces in our classrooms. Now, one of the major parts of our consolidation process is making sure that we're serving the number of students that we have in front of us. So historically, we've run at about a 10,000 student district. You can see what the enrollment number was back in 2017, 2018. And then where we've fallen to about 9,000, 9,100 students for 23-24 school year, and that's about where we are right now. And so we continue to project a decline in enrollment due to declining birth rates over the next 5 years at about 100 students per year. So as we move forward, we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up in our operations for serving 9,000 students and not 10,000 students as we had historically. And that's again why we think the consolidation is an important part of our process as we're moving forward. Now, this isn't specific to Oshkosh. This shift in demographics and declining enrollment due to birth rates is something that's happening across the state of Wisconsin and really across the country. As you can see, 71% of the public schools in Wisconsin have declining enrollments. So it's not specific to Oshkosh, but it's certainly something that Oshkosh as a school district has to make sure that we address moving forward. And here you can see just some of the trends that we have for birth rates on Oshkosh on the left-hand side and Wisconsin on the right-hand side as we, again, continue this demographic shift and making sure that we're right-sizing for the number of students that we're serving. And finally, gaining operational efficiencies. And this is really important for us. Again, as we're serving a district of 9,000 students, we really feel it's important for us to go from 20 schools down to 15 schools to run the most efficiently. And so we've started that process as we did the consolidation in phase 1 on the north side of town. And that has resulted in some significant annual savings for us. So we have over $500,000 in annual savings at Val Phillips Middle School as we took 2 middle schools and went to 1 middle school, and we have over $1.3 million in estimated savings for Menominee Elementary School, which is taking 3 elementary schools and moving them into 1. So over $1.8 million in annual operation savings just from our consolidation in Phase 1, and we expect to carry some of those similar savings over for consolidation for Phase 2. That's also saved us in reduction of travel time for staff, equipment and contracted services, having fewer facilities. And then as we would think about what Phase 2 would be able to provide, in addition to the operational savings, we'd also be able to end many of the contracts that we have with community partners that would be over $500,000 in savings as we would look at our pre-K services along with our alternative school sites and bringing those into buildings throughout the district. So let me take you a little bit further into the scope for Phase 2 as we move forward. So starting with the middle schools and looking at the replacement or rebuild of South Park Middle School. So that's a cornerstone project out of Phase 2. That's our building that's in the most dire need from a facility standpoint. Again, over 120 years old, and we need to make some significant improvements there. We'd look at repurposing Perry Tippler Middle School, so that building would still be in use for the district, but it wouldn't be as a formal school as it is right now. We would take the Perry Tippler students and we would move them to Traeger Middle School and South Park Middle School, and then we would bring in and house our alternative school sites that we have throughout the district for students that need a smaller setting and are in community sites throughout the city, and then also bringing our rec department, which is currently in the old rec gym, bringing those offices into Tippler Middle School. So that would be the repurposing, if you will, of Tippler Middle School. Going down to our elementary schools, we would look to sell Roosevelt Elementary School. And we do have some interest from a community standpoint on making that housing, as we have done for many of our older schools in the history of our district. Looking at expansions at Oakwood, Traeger, and Franklin to accommodate 600 students. So that would be some heavy renovations of those spaces along with increasing the size of those spaces. 600 students gets us to a point where we would have 4 classrooms per grade level, which allows us to have flexibility with the grouping of students as we learn who students learn best with and who they don't learn best with. We can have some flexibility within that space. And then also provides us with a good core of 4 teachers that can do professional development within their building at that specific grade level. So there's some distinct advantages for us to be at that 4-track level. We look at converting Shapiro Elementary School into a pre-kindergarten center and taking all of our 4K centers and locations that we have for our 4K sites and bringing them into Shapiro Elementary School and allow that school to be redesigned for 3- and 4-year-old bodies, which is a very specific developmental age for us. And we really believe that that can be a flagship facility for us as we bring new people into the community and allow them to be able to have their first experience with the Oshkosh Area School District, along with hosting some parenting classes, professional development for people that might be in post-secondary institutions, along with developing their skills in early childhood, both for our daycares and for our classrooms. So we really feel like that facility will allow us to have a great learning environment, not only for our students, but for our adults as we're moving forward. And then finally, we would eliminate those leases as we would move from the pre-K sites that are outside of the district, inside of the district, and move them inside of the district and have the alternative school programs brought within the district. So that would be part of our process. And then looking at our co-curricular facilities, we would build a high school auditorium at North High School. And so that's something that's desperately needed across the system. We only have one performing arts auditorium in the district, which is at the Kimball Auditorium at West High School. And so we need to create that similar opportunity on the north side. And so we would have that auditorium be the opportunity for our north side students to be able to have that performance and get out of the overscheduling that we currently have at Kimball Auditorium. And then selling the old rec gym and that facility that we have right now where the rec department is, and bringing them again into Tippler Middle School. So that's a scope and some details of the plan for Phase 2. So let me walk you through just some of those details again as we would look at our elementary schools. So we'd go from 5 elementary schools down to 4. At Traeger Elementary School, we would have a small addition, again, to add 4 classrooms and some collaborative space onto that building, and that's a perspective of where that would be on the footprint of that building. At Franklin Elementary School, we would have some significant heavy renovation as part of the existing building and some significant add-ons, additions to that building to be able to, again, get them up to 600 students. Part of the heavy renovation is making sure that we don't have phases of the building that look older than the other areas. So we want to make sure that they all are spruced up and would look new, that you would have the continuity between the classrooms as you would go throughout the building. A similar process at Oakwood Elementary School. Certainly the footprint is a little bit different at Oakwood, but we would do heavy renovation and then some additions at Oakwood. One of the main themes that we've heard at Oakwood is to make sure that we have walls for our classrooms in that open concept structure, so we would make sure that we would honor that request as part of this process. And finally, at Shapiro Elementary School, again, no additions being done there, but to be able to do some heavy renovation to make sure that we can accommodate those 3- and 4-year-old bodies developmentally and create a great learning environment for our initial contact for students and parents with our district. As I mentioned, the North High Auditorium, so you can see where that would be on that site, and that would be a 800-seat auditorium that would have a orchestra pit and a full fly to be able to provide great access for our performances, and also some additional storage space, some renovations to our art rooms, and then also a black box theater in where the current theater is right now, and that we would be able to provide just some smaller opportunities for performances for solo and ensemble, one-act plays, and some of our smaller performances. So that'll give us an opportunity to be able to have performances on the west side that would be bigger, over 1,000 seats that we have at the Kimball Auditorium, and then a little bit medium sized then at North High School, and then the small black box at North also. So some good variety then within the district. When we're talking about our middle schools on the west side, we would be consolidating from 3 middle schools down to 2 middle schools. Now, this is really where I'm interested in your feedback, and that I can then bring it back to the school board when they're making decisions about what the final plans are. There's a couple different options that we're looking at South Park. So number one is what you see on the screen here, is looking at a full tear down and a buildup of a brand new South Park Middle School on that same site. So that's option number one. Again, it's important for us to stay on that site, but a couple different things that we want to look at. The second option is looking at a renovation of South Park and an addition to that building. And so again, it takes up a little bit more of the square footage, acreage of that site, but we want to be able to get feedback from the community on which option we feel is the best way to go. If you look at those options side by side, you can do a little bit easier comparison. Again, on the left-hand side would be option one, and that would be a brand new school. You can see that new school would be built in right next to the footprint of the current school, and so students would be able to stay in that old school until the new school is built. That's estimated to be about $90 million for a new middle school at the time when that construction would take place. That would provide us with 21st century learning environments and all new infrastructure moving forward, again, to eliminate the liability from the 120-year-old building that we're carrying forward now. Option two looks at a renovation and expansion of South Park Middle School. That's estimated, because of the heavy renovation aspects of that, estimated to be about $82 million. We'd want to take care of as much of the old structure as we can. We wouldn't be able to address all of the issues with the old building, but we'd be able to do quite a bit of it with that heavy renovation. And then we would need an expansion for our students also to make sure we can accommodate the consolidation down to two middle schools on the west side. So those are the two options, price point, and really interested in having you be able to give us some feedback on those two options and which one you would prefer. Now, one of the most important things about this presentation is looking at the financial impact, because it's great to have plans, and we definitely have needs within the system, but we want to also talk about being responsible to taxpayers and creating stability for our property tax owners across our entire district. And so part of what the school board has strategically been doing over the last 3 years is providing an opportunity to prepay previous debt and paying off our highest interest rate debt first. And that prepayment of debt has allowed us to be able to have room within our debt schedule to bring on additional projects as we're moving forward. And so that's been strategically done over the last 3 years in preparation for the execution of our 4-phase facilities plan. And phase 2 is where we are right now. So on the right-hand side, you can see the project cost costs there for each one of those areas. And wherever you fall with South Park, it's either $187 million or $195 million total. The important part to know is because of the strategic planning of the school board from a financial standpoint, that we would be able to bring on $195 million in new projects with a zero increase to the school levy because we were paying off debts from previous projects. So that's a really important point to know, that there would be a $0 increase to the school debt levy. Currently, we're paying about $21.5 million in our this year's debt levy. And so what we're saying is that if we pass next April, if you were to pass a referendum for $195 million, next year you would also be paying that $21.5 million. So it would be a zero increase to the tax base, and you would be able to get the $195 million worth of investments and get us out of a lot of these older liabilities and provide better learning environments for our staff and for our students. So everything that we're talking about today will need to be voted on, and we want to make sure we're also preparing that what if phase 2 doesn't pass. And so as we look at this slide, these are just some things to remember as you're considering your feedback, that things that will happen that we'll have to live with if we don't pass phase 2. So again, you can read those on your screen. I would take your attention also to a couple of the bottom points. So one is the capital maintenance costs will continue to grow. So if we continue to have over 120-year-old buildings on our rolls, we're going to continue to spend millions of dollars in repairs of those buildings just to keep them running, not doing anything to improve the learning environments of those spaces, but literally just to keep them running and keep them operable. And so that's something that we really have to think about as part of this strategic investment that we have right now. And also knowing that at some point these construction costs are going to have to come due and we're going to have to make moves for it. And that right now, again, we're estimating it to be $195 million. If you project those costs over the next 4 or 5 years and look at 5% inflation assumptions, you can see that those costs are not getting any less. So we think now is the time to be able to offer the option to the community to be able to make moves. And again, doing that with a $0 increase to our debt levy as we move forward. So 4 takeaways, again, overall, and we're looking for your feedback based on some options that we have in this presentation, and really just your perspective overall, and what do you like, what do you not like, and then what questions do you have. The 4 takeaways that I want to close with today. So one, important to remember that student achievement is up, and that we're really proud of the work that our students and staff are doing, and we want to continue to build on that, and we'll continue to build on that in our classrooms, and know that the consolidation of our facilities, improvements to our facilities, will also help enhance that. That our tax levy is down. So again, we're down 5.05% from where we were last year to this year. So really important to know that we're being conscientious from a tax base standpoint to understand property tax owners and the burden that they carry forward. Consolidation is important because we have 1,000 less students due to declining birth rates, and we want to make sure that we're positioning ourselves to run our buildings at that 9,000 student mark. And then it's $0 increase to taxpayers. And that as we would look at phase 2, that's to me one of the most important points, is that we can do this without a tax increase. It's still a significant investment for us, $195 million. And so I definitely don't want to downplay this and say, well, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. But to be able to do that without a tax increase and keep stability for our taxpayers, we think now is the time to be able to do that. And our school board's provided an opportunity for that due to their strategic moves over the last 3 years. So most importantly, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to provide us with feedback. So on your screen right now, you see a QR code, and that's going to take you to a feedback form that you can use your phone just to click on that QR code and be able to download the form and give us feedback on what did you think about the clarity of this presentation? What did you like about the proposal? What do you have concerns with on the proposal? And then what questions do you have coming off of this type of proposal and presentation? We're going to take all of those questions and themes to the school board, then create a frequently asked questions list, and then be able to take those themes to the school board in November so they can have some deliberations around November, December, and January of whether or not they would want to move forward with phase 2, and if so, what is the scope of phase 2 based on your feedback. So again, if you could provide us with that feedback, that would be great. So thank you so much for joining me today and walking through our our facilities consolidation plan. Again, it's a plan that is grounded from the very beginning from citizens of Oshkosh and wanting to be more strategic with our school facilities, knowing that we're building community through education and that our schools need to be a strength of this city. So again, very proud to serve as your superintendent and looking forward to getting all your feedback. We'll see you soon and be well.